Oh my God, it's just come off.
So you've torn your bicep, now what do you do? In this video, I'm going to take you through the 4 stages that I use with my athletes of the kind of rough timescales that they're going to go through in each phase when coming back from a bicep tear. Because unfortunately, I've dealt with quite a few bicep tears in my time in the sport of strongman. I'll also be taking you through the supplement protocol that Shane Flowers has been using, who's recently come back from a bicep tear. He tore his bicep, unfortunately, a week before World's Strongest Man. So we'll be able to go through the kind of time scales that he went through, the supplements he used, and basically the training and the way the training's got to be phased as you go through each phase of your rehabilitation from a bicep tear. If you haven't torn your bicep, but you may be involved in the sport of strongman, you've got a few kind of bits of pain in your bicep and you're wondering about any warning signs you need to look out for, I'm also going to talk about some warning signs and basically signals that something might go wrong in the future and things you're going to look out for. I'm also going to go through the healing peptide protocol that we use to make sure that you can come back from these type of injuries as fast as possible, but also make sure that you are safe and resilient to start reloading your training properly. Because anyone that kind of tears a bicep is usually involved in some kind of sport that is high output and you need to have good resilience in the tendon. So by using these protocols, it makes sure that you can get back to not only best, but better than you were before. I'll also be talking about the number one mistake that I used to make with athletes when reloading the biceps after a tear, and I make sure that I do not do this mistake again because it's something that can kind of cause problems further down the line. So make sure you stick around all the way through the video so that you can get all these bits of information so that you can reload your bicep properly. So we'll go through warning signs first of all, guys. So warning signs for any kind of tear in a tendon, because by the way, guys, when I talk about a bicep tear and the rehabilitation, you've got muscle tears, muscle belly tears, and then you've got actually tendon tears. I'm talking about tendon tears here where you actually get a rupture and the bicep is no longer attached. So what we're looking out for here is tendinopathy. So when you get tendonitis in a tendon, it's quite common for athletes to have something that's on and off. So they get tendinopathy for a little bit and then they maybe do some rehab protocols, they go to physio, etc. They get rid of it. Right, a couple of months later, they start loading different movements again, tendinopathy comes back. Tendinopathy is the tendon degenerating. It's the tendon actually slowly getting damaged. And pain and pain going away is not a sign that the tendon has actually healed. So if you are someone that has suffered with bicep tendinopathy on and off over a long period of time, I would always advise, if you're worried, to get an ultrasound done on your tendon. That way they can actually look at the tendon and the health of the tendon and let you know if you are at risk of basically a rupture. If you did get an ultrasound done and it came back that the tendon wasn't in good health, there are certain treatments you can do, like shockwave, for example, that will be able to help the tendon actually heal, and then you would be able to get it back. Also, with the protocols we're going to go over for reloading the tendon after a tear, you'll be able to use those as well. And then you can maybe do this for 6 to 8 weeks, get another ultrasound and check to make sure the tendon's now in good health, and then you can go on with your training. This is a much better way than going off pain and sensation, because just because you remove pain and now your tendon feels okay, I have unfortunately learned that this does not mean that it is safe to load under high load and high force exertion. So tendinopathy really is your main warning sign that you are potentially going to suffer something later down the line. Phase 1 after an initial injury now. So you've been in the gym, you were doing a sandbag load or an atlas stone or whatever the hell you were doing, and bang, you felt a ping, you felt a tear, and your bicep, it's usually a distal, this is the most common, is a distal detachment in the bicep, and the bicep will kind of shoot up the arm. This is the most common bicep tear that you will suffer in strongman. You kind of know when it's a tendon tear because it doesn't really, well, I haven't actually torn a tendon, guys, so I'm talking from the experience of speaking to people that have, but it doesn't hurt. You just feel the pop, and there's a specific sound and sensation. There's not much pain, but then the bicep will have shot up the arm. A muscle belly tear is usually a bit more painful, and it will come with bruising after a couple of days, etc. Tendon tears don't often bruise, but again, tendon tears can be accompanied with muscle tears, so you could have both. But once you've done this, if you think you've ruptured your bicep, it's super important to get it sorted as soon as possible. So you need to go, if you're in the UK and in the NHS, you need to go to the hospital and see if you can get a scan ASAP at A&E. Now, sometimes in the UK when you do this, they will just send you away and have to get you booked in for a scan later down the line. If you are a professional athlete or you're wanting to do strongman, as you know, basically, let's say you take this very seriously and you've got big goals in the sport, I would really advise for you to go private, to be honest with you. If you think to yourself now, you're watching this video, you've not torn a muscle or tendon before, you're like, Shane, if this ever happened to me, I couldn't go private, I can't afford it, then get private health insurance, because it is a worthy investment for someone pursuing these sports. They are dangerous, and if you can't afford the out-of-pocket expense, bicep surgery is about $4 or $5 grand. So if you know that if this happened you couldn't afford that, make sure you get private health insurance, because it'll be a lifesaver if this ever happened. But I would advise you to go private so that you can get a scan done really fast and find out exactly what's happened instantly. And then if you do require the bicep to be reattached, you can get booked in, because the quicker you're able to get the surgery, the better and quicker you're going to be able to recover from the surgery as well. I like to see athletes get this done within about a 14-day period, as in from the day they tear the bicep to the day they get surgery is within kind of a 2-week period. Obviously, if you go private, then you might be slightly over this or under this, depending on waiting times. But the quicker the better, guys. And if you're in the UK, sometimes the NHS can be a long time, and it can make things a lot more difficult. Up until the surgery, let's say it's a couple of weeks, I would advise you to continue training. You have to make some adjustments. You'll obviously have probably a big mental hit, and you'll be feeling sorry for yourself. But the best thing to do mental health wise, guys, is have a sulk, be pissed off for a little bit, eat your feelings if that's what you like to do. That's what I like to do. But then you need to just accept the situation, and you need to make new plans, and you need to make new goals, and you need to basically get back on the saddle and start working towards what you can work on. So the safety bar is going to be your friend. So if you need to safety bar squat, machines are going to be your friend. So you can, use lower body machines. And there's something called cross education, guys, which is where you train one side of your body. Neurologically and physiologically, it does have changes and adaptations on the other side. So just because your right arm has a bicep tear, for example, you can still go in the gym and do a little bit on your left side. That's why machines are handy, because if you use dumbbells and stuff, you're going to be unstable. So make sure you just use machines so you get your stability gains from the machines. Let's say it's a Friday, you're getting your surgery on. About 2 days before is where I would look to start a higher dose BPC 157 protocol. I would advise taking roughly half a vial, so 2.5 milligrams of BPC 157, 2 days before and the day before surgery. You can do this as an intramuscular injection, and I would just go into the front delt personally, because you're getting close to the site of damage but not actually interfering or going into the muscle that's going to be operated on, etc. This is something that I didn't used to tell people to do, but because the longer I've done this and kind of spoken to more people, it's a way to help recovery after the surgery go better. So you don't want to start loading it for 2 weeks or so up until the surgery, because that could actually interfere with the surgery, because things start healing within the kind of torn position, which you don't want. But because it's only 2 days before, there's not enough time for anything really to happen, but it can just help manage that inflammation post-surgery. So start a BPC 157 protocol 2 days before your surgery. Now, once you've actually had your surgery, it's been reattached, obviously you've got the actual surgery site and the kind of stitching, etc. to deal with, which is the kind of first point of call. So you're going to probably be in a sling, won't be able to move your arm very much, and you need to get that, you need to let the surgery heal basically. So BPC 157 and TB 500, you can use these two as a peptide protocol to help speed up the healing process. Now, I'm not going to go too much into all the different ways you can do BPC 157, because I have a separate video that I'd advise you to watch on BPC 157. But BPC 157 and TB 500 can be applied exactly the same way. So if you're going to run them both, you can basically do the exact same protocol on both. It really comes down to funds, to be honest with you, and how much you can afford to spend. Because with BPC 157, after a bicep surgery, you're probably going to be looking to take it throughout most of the reloading process. So you're going to be talking at least eight weeks of usage. And with BPC 157, as I said in that video, the more you can kind of take, the better. So it really does depend on what you can afford. I would advise, though, most people, this is the best way to do it in my opinion, is to kind of slowly titrate your dosage of BPC 157 down. So you might use 2 vials of BPC and 2 vials of TB 500 a week, spread evenly across taking them daily, and then do that for 2 weeks, then go to like 1.5 vials for 2 weeks, then go to 1 vial a week. Again, if you want more accurate dosing protocols, I'd advise you to watch that BPC 157 video, or else this video will get far too dragged out if we go fully into that. After 6-ish, 8 weeks, the healing aspect and inflammation control from the BPC and TB will probably have done its job, because your biceps kind of getting more back to normal at this point, so it's not as needed. I would also advise, this came from Dr. Dean, from Supplement Needs. He helped Shane with a bit of a supplement protocol as well. So these supplements are from Supplement Needs. Obviously, I'm not affiliated with any supplement company in any way, but liposomal glutathione post-surgery, you can just take that at the recommended dosage for about a week, and it's going to help with mitochondrial health, but also it's very good for like your immune system and stuff post-surgery. And Supplement Needs also have a joint stack supplement that's got marine collagen in it, which is very synergistical with the effects that BPC 157 will be doing. So you could stack these supplements post-surgery as well to help. Also, liposomal curcumin, which will be helpful with inflammation control as well. You could add in for a little while after surgery, maybe just the first week or two, to just help bring down that initial inflammation from the surgery. So after you've got these little protocols built, they're really just about being consistent with them. So you're going to be taking your BPC and TB every day. You're going to be taking your joint stack supplements or whatever supplements you choose to use. Again, you can use things like fish oils, collagen supplements, different joint supports. I use a joint support from CN Sport that's got curcumin in as well, actually, so that would be good for inflammation control. But again, the ones we used as Shane Flowers was the Supplement Needs range, because he obviously works with Dr. Dean. But so once you've got this built, it really comes down to the training now, guys. And this is the most important part, because if you can reload the bicep properly, then it's going to be, you're going to get back to training a lot quicker, and it's going to be much easier for you to get back to your events training and stuff for strongman. So when you first get it done, you're going to get put in a sling. And this is where it comes down to, you have to make your own opinion on this, guys, as to what you do. Because the surgeons will say different, usually, to my experience. So a lot of the surgeons will say, keep this in a sling and don't move it. For depending on who you speak to, some I've seen as low as like 2 or 3 weeks. I've seen as high as 6 weeks. So again, if you're someone who's like, I want to listen to my surgeon, my doctor, then don't fucking listen to this. But for me, the people that have come back the best from bicep tears have started moving their arm as soon as that wound feels like it's healed a little bit. And this where comes in just a bit of common sense, all right? Maybe it's been 7 to 10 days after your surgery. See if you can just move your arm a little bit, and you'll find that you'll have a lack of supination. You might only be able to supinate this far. You'll have a lack of pronation as well, and you won't have full extension. Maybe you can extend your arm this far. So what the best recovered athletes have done is maybe like 20 times a day, take their arm out of the sling and just move their arm through the ranges and just try to open up range of motion. The quicker you can get range of motion back, the better. After the surgery, because you won't have moved your arm for very long, for like at least 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, you might not have moved your arm much, it's going to have atrophied a lot. I'd really recommend you purchasing a power dot for around this time, guys. You can buy a Compex as well, but they're about 10 times more expensive and do the same thing. A power dot's just electro stim, and you can put it on, like, you can start around your forearm and like your brachioradialis, etc. And you can just get some strength workouts done on the power dot that's going to stimulate the muscle and just get a little bit of neurological connection there and a little bit of hypertrophy. And then once you feel comfortable, because you probably feel a bit ropey, you put it on your bicep and actually get the bicep to contract itself. And that's going to really help in those initial stages where you can't really move the bicep much. If you've got full range but you're super weak, start with the power dot for a couple of days, and because it's such low stimulus, you can do higher frequency, so you could do it daily. Or you might find, use common sense, guys, you might find you get a load of muscle soreness and DOMS. Well, let it recover and then do it again afterwards, yeah? A little bit of common sense got to be required. Just remember, we're talking in phases here. Phase 1 is week 1 to 3, where we're getting that injury site to heal and we're just moving the arm and getting full range of motion back. We're now going into this phase 2. Now, the first actual movements that you want to do, so once you've got full range of motion back, you can fully supinate, you can fully extend. The first thing you want to do is blood flow restriction training, guys. You also want to pair that with isometrics. I like to do isometrics first. So the best way to do it, guys, is you pick 3 joint angles. So for the bicep, you probably want like a 90-degree angle, and then just a little bit before full extension, and then go somewhere in between. And that's going to be a good 3 angles to use for your isos. All you're going to do is hold each position for roughly 30 to 45 seconds for 3 sets on each joint angle. So that's 9 sets total, 30 to 45 seconds on each set. Pick a really easy starting load, 1 kilo if it has to be. Do your isos with 1 kilo, and then every time you do this protocol, just try to linearly progress it. Maybe not every session, maybe because we're doing high frequency, maybe you do the same weight but make it easier on a couple of sessions. But just try to get better every time you do it. After you've done your isos, follow it with your blood flow restriction training, and that'll be a really successful pairing for helping bring strength back in that bicep. I would advise you to use a supinated position, because that tends to be the most exposed. And if you're holding a dumbbell, put your little finger to the end so that the weight of the dumbbell is trying to pull your arm into more supination, and that tends to be a good one. But you can also, if you find that you personally, it feels weaker, slightly more pronated or neutral, you can do isometrics with different wrist positions as well. So you could actually end up doing more than 3 sets if you wanted to. Again, with these reloadings at the start, it's very high frequency, so you can maybe do alternating positions. You can build some kind of protocol with it based upon feeling and feedback you're getting from the positions. So I'd recommend you getting some blood flow restriction cuffs. You can get some nice fancy ones with an app, etc., but you don't really need to spend the money if you don't need. Just buy your standard blood flow restriction cuffs. And the protocol that we use is the 30, 15, 15, 15 protocol, where you do 30 reps and then you take 30 seconds rest, and then you do 15, 30 seconds rest, 15, 30 seconds rest, 15. I believe we did 3 sets of that, and it enables you to get full range of motion through the bicep. And studies show with blood flow restriction training similar hypertrophy outcomes with minimal load exposure to actually obviously training closer to failure with load. So it's a really good way to start your bicep reloading. At this stage as well, you want to make sure you're doing stuff with your hands, guys, all right? So finger extensions, if you get yourself on Amazon and just buy these finger bands that they just slot around the ends of your finger and do extension with your fingers, this is going to be really, really helpful. And also, at this stage, only if it feels safe, you might need to wait a little bit longer. You might need to do this blood flow restriction training for a little while before we get to this point. This is my mistake that I used to make as well, where I didn't reload this range of motion and it was an issue later down the line. So this range is supination and pronation strength. So all you need to do to start is get yourself like a handle. You can actually buy these on Gods of Grip. I can't even remember. I think they're just called pronation, supination hammers or something, but that's literally what you need. Is like, it's something where the load is over here, and then you can just move through these ranges and open the range but strengthen the range as well. And usually you'll feel the tendon that's been reattached at this point as well. So just start on all these movements really reserved within, use common sense, use the sensation. You've torn a bicep, which means you've probably been training a long time to do it. So use mind muscle connection, use sensation, start manageable and just slowly reload. And then with this blood flow restriction training, reloading, pronation, supination, finger strength, we want to basically do this linearly for roughly week 3 to week 6 is a good time frame, because each session will progress pretty fast. Remember what I said before though, guys, because it's low load, because it's not much stimulus, you can use frequency. So you could do this every other day, something like that. Or you could do your finger extensions every day probably. You know, you could still be moving the arm through ranges every day. Use common sense. If you train and it's sore, let it recover and then go again. But because it's low load and low stimulus, you usually need the frequency. So during phase 1 and 2, when we're kind of working from week 1 to 6, please remember that you're still going to be training, all right? So you're still going to be in the gym. You're still going to be doing your safety bar squats. Maybe you've bought a deadlift strap and you want to do deadlifts with a deadlift strap. I would just say for most people to stick to good mornings and back extensions and stuff, but you're still going to be in the gym training. And remember what I said earlier about cross-education training. You're still going to be training the opposite side. So as you're going through this reloading process from week 3 to 6, maybe on week 6, when maybe you're doing incline bicep curls on this side, it's okay to just see, can I do like a 1 kilo on the arm I tore? Because remember, we just need a start point. We just need something, yeah? Maybe you try some tricep push downs at week 4 or 5 on the arm you tore. It's all about going with the flow with a reload. And if you find something that feels okay, then you can start really easy and start reloading it. So although I'm giving you these things to do specifically for the bicep, you've got to remember that there's this whole other story going on in the background as to how you're actually training. And it's okay to be like, right, I'm training triceps today on my good arm. You know, this arm's, the blood flow restriction training is feeling good. You know, I'm reloading my super. Maybe I'll try some push downs. And then maybe you can just start training the tricep a little bit with some single arm push downs. Maybe you can do an overhead extension. And once you find a movement that's okay, that's what you're going to take into stage 3. So as you come into the end of stage 2, make sure that you're not shy of just experimenting. As you get to that week 5 and week 6, when you're getting more confident with your blood flow restriction and whatnot, experiment. Maybe you find, I can do an incline bicep curl okay. It's weak as fuck, but I can do it okay. Maybe on your rows, you're doing a single arm row machine. Maybe you just start using both arms really light. All this data that you build at the end of stage 2 is what you're going to take into stage 3. As we get into stage 3, which is like the 6 to 10 week area, I'd call it, everything that you've been experimenting with, now you should be able to build into a program that starts really fucking light, guys, but you can linear every week. So if you find that you can do a row machine super light, then maybe you do quite a few reps on your good side, and then you drop the weight down and do similar reps with less load on your injured arm. And then every week you use how strong is my good arm as you guide us to 100% strength, and how strong is my bad arm? Right, I'm 30% of the way there at the minute. Next time you do it, 40%, 50%, 60%, and you just linearly progress it, guys. Important to find these movements that feel okay, and we want to make sure we're strengthening through all ranges of motion is very important. So, all ranges of motion, a row, horizontal, a pull down, vertical, okay? We want to have a press horizontal and a press vertical. We want to have basically pronation strength and supination strength, yeah? We want to have finger extension, wrist extension, and wrist flexion. And we want to have radial deviation and ulnar deviation. You need to make sure you strengthen all of those ranges of motion, because if you don't, there will be a weak link. So I like to, for my athletes, build like a fucking arms session basically, and they'll do bicep curls, they'll do tricep extensions, wrist flexion, wrist extension, reverse curls, a good one for wrist extension strength as well. Radial deviation, radial deviation is lifting your thumb this way basically. Ulnar deviation, ulnar nerve, little finger to elbow. So you grab a rope or a band and do this. And you don't need to go crazy. 3 sets of 10 and everything. You don't have to overcomplicate it. Just 3 sets of 10 and everything. And then linearly progress it. Start week 6-ish. Maybe you can only do 60% of the exercises because it's still not perfect. That's okay. Do what you can. Next week, add an extra exercise in. By the time you get to week 10, guys, is where you should have got to the point where you're actually pretty strong on all these movements. Maybe you're 70, 80%, on the way to your good arm, and you've just reloaded nice and slow. By this point in time, your BPC protocol should have probably gone out the window, and you should be at the point where you are just taking your kind of normal supplements and your normal routine and whatnot. And then you kind of come into the end of this stage 3. Rough timescales, guys. Maybe it took you 2 more weeks to get into stage 2. Maybe it takes you to week 12 or 14 to get to the end of stage 3. But these are rough timescales that we should be dealing with, all right? It's not a race either, remember. Final stage is stage 4. This is where, as a strongman, as long as you've got to the point where you feel strong curling, flexing, extending, rowing and pulling down, doesn't have to be 100% even, but at least 80% of the way there, it's okay at this point to start reloading your events. Grip is going to be a big one. Okay to do some farmer's walks. It's okay to do some super light sandbags. Maybe you start with the lightest sandbag you've got and you just do pendley rows, all right? During stage 4, everything you did in stage 3 is still continuing on, guys. So you're still linearly progressing all your machines, your wrist flexion, extension, ulnar radial deviation, curls, pull downs, pressing overhead, horizontal rowing, everything is still going on. But you want to make sure that you start adding these events in, because when you add these events in, it's a really low starting point that we need to linear again. So if we want to get by week 16, you want to be in the position, again roughly, where you feel like you're kind of pretty much back to somewhat normal. Little bit of inhibition still, maybe you're not at complete top end weights, but you're pretty much there. So you've got to start linear with your events and go nice and slow. At least 4 or 5 exposures before you even think about getting heavy. For example, Shane Flowers started, this guy can obviously maul 150 kilo sandbags like they're nothing. He started at 70 kilo sandbag, just doing some rows. And then he's going to go 80, 90, 100. So it's quite a slow process of reloading these events. But if by week 16, well, let's say Shane's rowing 100 kilo sandbag for sets of 10, week 16, that's going to give him loads of confidence that, yeah, you know what, if I can row this 100 kilo sandbag fine, I can't feel a thing, I could probably pick up a 140 sandbag if I want. This is the thing about getting back to strength by week 16, guys, is just because you are back to strength doesn't mean you actually go do it. So I want Shane to feel like he could do a 140, 150 sandbag and just rag it. I want him to feel that way, but I'm still gonna, you know, steady him along. 110 sandbag, 120 sandbag. Did that feel okay? Yeah, right, sweet. Maybe we do 120 sandbag again. So just because you can do something doesn't mean you have to. And as long as you kind of follow this rough path, remember, I've kind of mapped out what seems like a straight line to recovery. You have to go around it like this. You're gonna encounter different things. Like one of the things we encountered with Shane Flowers was, we randomly noticed that his pinch grip strength was even though we'd reloaded everything, we noticed his pinch grip strength was a little weak. So we added in some double overhand axle work, and we added in some fat grip work to help strengthen his pinch grip. And a lot of these ranges of motion, guys, if you find a weak range, just train it, because it'll come on really quick. As soon as you expose it to load, it'll reload really quick.